currently on the phone with Derek Smith. He's another musician that reached out about the current interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, Derek Smith here. I am the lead singer and rhythm guitarist and primary songwriter of the band The Cosmic Vultures. We were just recently nominated for a New England Music Award for Artist of the Year. And I'm also working as a solo artist as well. So you can catch me on either avenue.
Awesome, that's great. Congratulations. So with these interviews, I always like to go back to the beginning and find out how you got involved in music. When did you first encounter it? What about it was important to you and kind of stuck with you?
Yeah, I actually have a very vivid memory, and this is kind of weird because most people can't really remember their, very, very young age. But I remember coming down the stairs from my bedroom on like a Saturday morning. I think I was like 5 or 6 years old. I was young, but my dad was playing a cassette tape in the living room, and he's a painter and also a musician who's played with a lot of great musicians. And he was playing, I think it was the White Album by the Beatles, and I just was listening to this music and I was like, this just felt right to me. I couldn't explain it. It just felt special. Like this was something that's going to be big in my life. And then as asked my dad to bring out the shoebox full of cassette tapes. I was going through all the tapes he had, and he had a ton of Beatles, and I put on like Rubber Soul and Revolver. And I was like, this is great. I can't explain it. So that was like just been embedded into my blood since I was a little kid. And from then on, I mean, I've just been like the biggest Beatles fan. I met my wife in college, and she was a big Beatles fan. So it's always been a part of my life. But my father's a bass player, and my mother's a piano teacher. So music's always kind of been there. And my mom always tried to teach me piano, like how to read. And I was like, listen, the Beatles don't know how to read. I'm not going to know how to read. Very stubborn. And I was just like, I'm just going to learn myself. And so I did. I learned piano by myself. My mom was like, really impressed. She's like, wow, I can't believe you picked that up by yourself. And I was like, yeah, it just makes sense to me. I just see a piano and I just see that it makes sense. So that was kind of my first encounter with like playing an instrument. And then I told my dad when I was 16, I was like, I don't really want to like sit on stage and play a piano and sing. I'd rather stand up and sing. And he's like, well, do you want to like play another instrument? And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to play guitar. So he bought me like a cheap Squire and a Fender amp and was like, here you go. Like he was a bass player, so he didn't know too much, but he was like, here's an A chord and here's a D chord. And he's like, he bought me like a chord book and like one of those chord posters to put on your bedroom wall. And I just taught myself how to play rhythm guitar because what I wanted to do is I wanted to sing and play like John Lennon. Like that was my inspiration of like, I just want to play chords and be able to sing and write. So that's always been my thing. I've always just been a rhythm guitar player and then singer and then to write my own songs from a very, very early age. So that's really what happened. So I have piano as like my other instrument, but I haven't really utilized it too much because I don't like carrying a big old keyboard around with all kinds of equipment. It's kind of rough, unless you have somebody helping you or whatever. But so, I play an acoustic guitar. So like I just carry that around, and usually there's a PA at a venue and I'm all set. I love it. My drummer's got to lug all these drums and I'm just like, I'll help you. But man, like I love just being a singer with my acoustic. So that's kind of that story.
Sure. So going back a little bit, let's talk about, when you decided that you were going to, learn various instruments. Obviously, you were influenced by the Beatles. You wanted to kind of go down that path of musicianship. What do you think led you to choosing the first instrument that you decided you were going to try to learn in order to pursue that?
Yeah, I think that because my mom was a piano teacher, the piano was always just readily available to me. My dad was a bass player, and he would like sit on the couch and play his electric bass, and I couldn't hear it, unless he plugged it in.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was so interested in singing, I noticed that listening to the Beatles, when I would listen to Paul McCartney sing and play bass, he was playing a bass line and then singing a different melody, and I'm like, that seems extraordinarily difficult to play two different melodies at the same time. So I was like, oh, it'd be much easier. John Lennon is strumming a C chord and then an F chord and then an A minor. And I'm like, that's got to be easy. So I sat down on the piano and I was like, maybe I can do it here. And I did. And the piano was just so accessible to me. I sat down, I bought like a Beatles chord book, or I think I bought like a Stevie Wonder chord book too, because I was a big fan of his. And that made sense to me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a piano player and I'm going to sing and write songs on the piano. And I did. I wrote like 20 songs on the piano at like when I was like 16. And I don't know if they were any good. My parents were like, wow, like your chord progressions are really good. And I mean, my vocals, obviously, I mean, they're not as good as they are now. I learned how to like, make my voice sound a bit better and kind of like figured out ways to kind of get away with certain things and such. But that was like really what I was gonna do. And then I switched to the guitar because it was like my dad's like, "Do you want to play bass?" And I was like, "I don't think bass is gonna like help me create what I want to create. It's just kind of I want to do something where there's real chords and like piano, guitar." So that's when I morphed into the guitar because I was like, I need to stand up and play. I have no energy sitting at a piano. Um, so that's kind of what happened there.
How did you find the translation between piano and guitar? Do you feel that the two instruments translate well to each other?
I found it extraordinarily difficult because my fingers were killing me when I started playing a guitar. And the piano is just so nice, and you can see. The thing is, you look down, you can see everything in front of you. With a guitar, like when you're first starting out, you have to like bend it back and be like, "Am I playing the right chord? I don't know." But I found it really difficult at first. And at first I knew an A chord, and then I knew a D chord, and I was like, okay, that's kind of hard. And then I looked at the chord book, and I'm like, ooh, a G and a C seem hard. And over time, I was like, I couldn't believe how fast I had picked it up. And then, of course, as a rhythm guitar player, you can play chords, but then it's like, can your rhythm be good? Do you know about rhythm? And I started watching people play, and I was like, okay, they're doing different rhythms. And I always had a rhythm in my head. I always kind of knew, not that I could dance or anything, but I always just had that beat in my head of like, I kind of understand what rhythm is like.
Hmm.
A lot of guitar players, I teach a few people here and there, and a lot of them, the most problems they have is not the chords, it's how to play rhythm and how to like keep in time and everything. So I always kind of had that for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but I would say over the course of a couple of years, it just started to make more sense to me, and I never really went back to piano. I mean, I play it here and there, but standing up with a guitar and doing that. And I switched over to acoustic, and acoustic was even harder. The strings were tougher, but I just thought it just clean and crisp sounding, and I could sing perfectly over the acoustic. So that just made more sense to me. And like with anything, it just takes time to get used to it, and build those calluses in your fingers. So,
Sure. So then you mentioned that you wrote a significant amount of material by yourself. How did you kind of approach the concept of filling out a lineup of who you wanted to play with, and what type of instrumentation you wanted to play with?
Yeah, I thought I'd be solo forever. My dad used to play. He was in a band with like Billy Squier in the early '70s before Billy Squier blew up. A lot of different bands, and I would watch like videotapes of him playing and stuff. And I was just looking at all the different players and why it's important to have a keyboard player to fill in that background space, and having all these different singers do harmonies. I think harmonies are just a lost art nowadays. When I hear a new band do harmonies, I'm like, oh, that's excellent. Like they're picking it up. But I just thought I'd be solo forever. I met a buddy. His name is Steve Constantino in middle school, and we were friends early on. And then in high school, he would play bass, and he was like, for his age, he was like the best bass player I'd ever seen ever. And he was really into Victor Wooten, and he, because of that, he just learned all these crazy techniques and stuff. And we always jammed together, but nothing ever really happened until I think it was 2012. He moved back from Florida because he moved out there, and we just decided to form a band, and we called it the Cosmic Vultures. And it just made sense to us. And he would play, and I was writing folk songs. I was writing folky, like Rubber Soul type Beatles songs, like Norwegian Wood, like that type of thing. And he would like start adding like funk bass over my songs, and I'm like, what are you doing? But for some reason it worked. So we had this weird like funk folk thing going on that was like weird. And then after a while, a friend of ours was a drummer, and he said, let me play with you guys. And I remember the first moment the three of us were in a basement, and he started playing drums, and the other guy playing bass over my songs. I had the biggest smile on my face because I had never been a part of a full band playing a song and like everybody's in time. It was like, this is so cool. So that was kind of the start of the band. It's morphed into a completely different lineup now. Steve's still in the band. Me and him have started from the very beginning. But I didn't choose. I didn't go out and choose people. It just happened. I just thought I'd be solo forever. And then once I had a band, I was like, I never want to not have a band. I didn't realize how fun, but also it's so. It really is. Like, we have 5 people in the band. To get everybody on the same page is literally impossible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it can be difficult to align everything together, right? But once it does, it is a very nice feeling. Awesome. So that kind of covers, what you're working on now. Um, what are some of the aside from getting the band together and everything, what are some of your favorite memories that kind of stand out to you that keep you motivated and have had a major impact on the way that you approach music?
Yeah, so the first thing that I really noticed is when we would play a show at a local restaurant or a local venue, anything like that. And again, this is all original material that I write or co-written with the band and stuff. So right off the bat, you're putting yourself on the line. And when you're playing original music, people don't know, they're not really going to pay attention to you unless they just find a song unbelievable, which is hard. It's hard to really impress somebody with music. And as soon as you pull a cover out, it's like they just fall in love with you if they know the song. And I hated that. And one thing that really took to me was playing at a bar and playing a bunch of originals that we wrote that were really good and we really loved them. And the people were bobbing their heads and we were like, okay, they're kind of into it and stuff like that. But then I looked over to the band and I said, I'm going to call an audible right now. I said, let's play Valerie by Amy Winehouse. And it's something that like I don't really want to do. I mean, it's not really a cover I want to play, but I knew the crowd would react, and the place just blew up, and everybody in the room was dancing and jumping. The band was having fun. I was the only upset person in the entire room during that song, and I'm singing it, and I'm like, this is bull. I want to be playing, and so, but I got it. I understand the formula of you need to give the crowd some sugar, and then you mix in your stuff afterwards, and all of a sudden things start to change. I won the audience back with that cover. Then our next original was funky and they were all dancing to my original, and I'm like, I get it. That's the formula. You have to mix both in. Covers are important, and for years I was like, I don't want to play with people's music, but it's important. So that was a lesson that it took me a long time to learn, to the point now where I'm about to play a solo show in January at a local brewery, and I'm playing 90% covers because that's what they want to hear. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to balance my songwriting in covers and say, like, you know what? I have to balance it to make sense. So that was a lesson that I learned that was really, really important.
Sure.
But I would say some of the most recent things that have happened, we got nominated for a New England Music Award, and we were so, so happy about it. I've just been I guess the word is depressed over the last couple of years because I think we put out 5 albums now as a band, and every album we put out, it's not really getting the attention I think it deserves and stuff. And how do you get your music in front of people? And our last album I thought was really, really good, and then we got nominated, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is like the mojo I needed to keep going, because like any musician out there who creates, you self-deprecate more than anybody. I mean, everybody thinks their stuff is not good enough, or I remember the 1980 Playboy magazine article with John Lennon where he's like talking about his music right before he died, and the guy was just shelling out these different Beatles songs, and John was like, "Yep, crap, that was crap, that was crap, that was crap." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? These are my favorite songs." Like, a self-deprecating artist is like a real thing, and for years I was like, no, and we finally got nominated, and it happened. We didn't win, but it was great to get noticed, and it was important to me to know that like somebody out there was like, these guys are doing something, and I was like, man, that's great. I wish everybody could experience that feeling, because I know, there's a lot of bands that don't get noticed and nominated, and they're really, really good. So I also, yeah.
Yeah, even to be nominated, it is an achievement.
Yeah, yeah, and I could have gone my whole life not getting nominated, but sometimes you just need that little pat on the back saying like, "Hey, keep doing what you're doing," and that's
Yeah.
the most important thing. But I would say, though, one other thing that I did notice is I was really getting depressed after shows. The band was having fun. The crowd was, yeah, they were into it. Depends what crowd. It depends where you're going to. If you're going to play at a venue that literally is a music venue, people are going there to listen to music. So therefore, they're going to be into the show. If we go play at a restaurant, they're there eating cheeseburgers. They may not even be into what you're doing. They may not even want to hear a band.
Yeah.
So we've been playing breweries and restaurants too, and those people are like, yeah, cool. Those aren't the people we want to play to. We want to play to people who came to buy a ticket to watch music. So it's different venues and stuff. But I would get depressed, and the band would be like, "What's your problem? Why are you always so upset after a show?" And I'm like, "I didn't get the recognition that I deserve." And they're like, "Dude, lower your ego, number one, and like number two, they're like, we're all friends and we had super fun tonight. Did you have fun on stage?" And I said, "Yeah." I go, that's the most important thing, Derek. And it took me a while to understand that, like, yeah, that is what it's all about. It's not about climbing the ladder and climbing the rungs to the championship belt. It's not really about that. It's I had to sit back and say, this is really fun. I'm playing original music with my friends at a restaurant, like, or a venue. Like, that should be good enough for me. Like, it's fun. And they had to remind me of that. I'm like, Derek, like, just take a step back and enjoy the moment. And I was like, you're right. And I think everybody playing music needs to step back and realize, like, if you're playing out with your friends, that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And as you put it, that's fundamentally, why most of the people get into music. It's because they just want to be heard like that, regardless of, what level of recognition they're getting.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So, where can people, find the stuff that you're doing and follow you and then check you out if you ever hit up their area?
Yeah, so the band, the Cosmic Vultures, and myself, just under Derek Smith, we're on all social media, so Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. All of our material, albums, everything are on all platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, everyone you could think of, YouTube, we're everywhere. So type in the Cosmic Vultures, you'll find our work. Just straight up, if you go to a Google search engine and just type in our name, you'll find stuff. But we just put out a new single called Psychotherapy. We worked with David Minahan of Woolly Mammoth Sound in Waltham, Massachusetts, and he is like the cream of the crop producer. I think he gets nominated every year for like every award show, and he always wins. He's incredible. The only way I explain him, he's a wizard. He's a wizard of music, and he's awesome. We worked with him for Psychotherapy. We also worked with him with 3 other singles. We have a new one called Hexagon coming out in January. We're really excited about it. And I just put out a solo single, and I say that the reason why I put out solo material is because I write so many songs that sometimes they don't all fit into the Vulture universe, if you will. Or I just have too many songs and we just don't have the time to record them as a band. So I have to just do it on my own just because I have so much stuff. So I released a new single called Fire in the Forest. It's doing really well right now on Spotify. I think it's almost up to 4,000 streams, which is so cool for me that people are listening. But it's much more acousticy and folky and more mood pieces. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of like the opposite of Cosmic Vulture sound. But yeah, you could find our stuff everywhere on all social media and platforms.
Awesome. And I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So just a message you want to throw out there that, you feel you resonate with.
I've seen a lot of musicians and a lot of friends who've just completely given up because they're not getting what they want. They're not getting fulfillment out of it. And one interview that I saw with the Black Keys, popular band, they were saying how for 10 years they were touring the country and they got nothing out of it. Nothing, until finally they were recognized. Just don't give up. I mean, there's no reason to. Like, it's going to take years for someone to appreciate your stuff, but there's always going to be somebody that you influence in music, even if it's somebody who just thinks like your pedal is cool or the guitar thing that you did at a show is cool or a song you wrote or covered is cool. Like, you're going to influence somebody along the line, and just never give up because you never know who you're going to meet and who you're going to influence.